Welcome to the Dummy Kruger channel, everyone. In today's video, we are heading to Kalamazoo, Michigan to check in on Fricn Media and Michigan Constitutional Crusader. I've never addressed these two individuals in my coverage because I find their, quote, activism difficult to tolerate. By activism, I'm referring to their behavior of thrusting cameras into local businesses' windows in an attempt to provoke a reaction, which often leads to these pseudo-tough individuals resorting to using pepper spray. This video, however, presents a unique scenario as these two individuals have now descended into the depths of becoming sovereign citizens, a topic that I find intriguing and enjoy covering. We're going to jump right into the middle of a video where these two are talking with an officer about their God-given rights to travel.
Okay. So I had made a traffic stop and he was a sovereign citizen.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Now, how did you handle that? I mean,
like I said, same thing we talk to you guys. I'm not trying to be an asshole or anything, you know. Just
right.
Like him. We just talked a little bit, kind of got his side, and eventually he gave me his information. I didn't write him a ticket or nothing like that.
First, notate the text on the screen reading, quote, "No, we are not sovereign citizens." These guys hate it when they are called sovereign citizens. That's why I enjoy using the tagline, "Don't you dare call me sovereign citizen, sovereign citizen." I'd imagine it has something to do with the fact that the FBI considers them domestic terrorists.
Well, you know, there's Supreme Court case law and lower federal court case law that came out that says we have the right to drive on public roadways and not be forced to enter into a contract with the government for a driver's license, be forced to register our vehicles, or it's fairly new. Yeah, it's fair. Or
this happened 3 years ago.
Right, or be forced into financial responsibility, i.e. insurance. The government cannot force you into that. I can take my plate off my vehicle, take my driver's license back to the DMV, give them my driver's license back, and tell them I want to void my contract with the state. I don't want your plates. Oh man, you know what? Write this down. There's a channel on YouTube called Here's the Deal.
The second half of this video, we will be focusing on Here's the Deal's video because that's where these two law scholars received all of their information as it pertains to this topic. It's worth noting that Fricn Media asserts his knowledge of the, quote, right to travel based on watching a 20-minute video by another YouTuber. This highlights precisely why my channel is called Dummy Kruger, as it emphasizes the dangers of overestimating one's understanding based on limited or incorrect information. Despite receiving numerous comments in my comments section suggesting that my channel name is fitting due to the inclusion of the word dummy, I always find it rather amusing as the wordplay tends to elude them.
And he just done a great video on it with at least 3 or 4 different federal case rulings regarding the right, what's called the right. We have the right to travel. Okay, we have the right to go travel up and down public roadways in our personal carriages, our personal vehicles. Because see, the way they word it with driver's license, transportation, and all that, you're falling under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act.
I've heard that it's considered like commercial or something like
that. It is.
It's
commercial. If you're, you have to have a license to drive a semi truck or even a van, for like Panther. Yeah, if you're using the roads for commerce, then you have to pay a road tax, a fuel tax, and a bunch of other fees to the government.
People that do Uber,
they have to have a driver's license because they're using the highways and roadways to make money. But if you're just traveling for personal purposes to the grocery store, to the park, or whatever, you're not required to have a registration, license, and insurance.
It is quite remarkable to witness the level of confidence he exudes in this subject solely based on a single 20-minute video. Claiming expertise in a field without fact-checking any information from Here's the Deal's video is exactly how these guys operate. It's a common tendency for individuals to embrace information they agree with and quickly consider it as fact. The confirmation bias can hinder critical thinking and objective analysis. Yet, ironically, they call me a sheep.
Look into it, like I said, obviously, we're taught, you said it's federal?
It's federal case law and that trumps everything. That trumps everything, and they're.
It's kind of one of those where
I didn't get like balls deep in it with the case law.
Yeah, you don't say. All right, before we jump to Here's the Deal's video, I want to play one more quick clip that I found pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't even mess with Lansing because every interaction I've really had with Lansing, they've been phenomenal. Mine is getting arrested at the DMV for renewing my registration and daring record myself and not leave when the manager said leave. And then they found me guilty because my lawyer screwed that up.
The irony that he was arrested while attempting to register his vehicle at the DMV, even though he claims it's unnecessary, certainly isn't lost on me. Naturally, he blames his lawyer for the conviction, as these individuals excel at evading personal responsibility for their actions. Okay, now let's jump to YouTube channel Here's the Deal, where these two experts received all of their information about not needing a driver's license to drive on the highways.
I titled this video, Supreme Court Rules No License Necessary to Drive on Public Highways. I am not a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice, but I am going to read from an appellate court. I'm going to read from Supreme Court cases that testify. They testify. The Supreme Court testifies. The lower court testifies that you don't need a license to drive on public highways in America.
Well, we will certainly see about that. I'm going to let him read over some of the pertinent parts of this case, then focus on the one line in the entire case that he believes proves his point about licensing.
The facts are undisputed. Appellant, a 20-year-old youth, was stopped by Officer Winfrey while driving an automobile on McHenry Avenue in Modesto at about 1:15 in the morning. There were two passengers in the car, appellant's 15-year-old brother and his 10-year-old cousin. As Officer Winfrey approached the automobile, he noticed that there was no key in the ignition. The officer mentioned this fact to appellant and was told that appellant had lost the keys about 2 weeks earlier and that he had to hotwire the vehicle to start it. Winfrey asked appellant's permission to search the automobile, and permission was granted. He found 2 burnt cigarettes in the glove compartment. Officer Winfrey then asked to see vehicle registration slip, and when he discovered that the car was registered to Lillian Lacus in Rosemead, California, placed appellant under arrest. Appellant was searched, and a rolled cigarette was found in his shirt pocket. All 3 cigarettes contained marijuana.
The more he reads over this case, the more we find out this ruling has absolutely nothing to do with driver's license, insurance, registration, or even the quote, right to travel. Essentially, the crux of the case was as follows. An officer pulled over a car on the highway, openly stating the reason for the stop was the presence of teenagers in the vehicle late at night. Since the officer lacked probable cause for the initial stop, any evidence discovered during subsequent searches is deemed inadmissible.
More specifically, the officer must be able to point to specific and articulated facts which, taken together with rational inferences from the facts, reasonably warrant that intrusion. It even quotes Terry v. Ohio here, which is pretty interesting. A mere hunch or subjective suspicion will not justify a temporary detention. Applying these principles, these are principles, to the instant case, we're impelled to conclude that Officer Winfrey did not have legal cause to stop appellant's automobile. Appellant was driving within the legal speed limits, not erratically, and there were no visible operational defects on the vehicle. Furthermore, although the officer observed 2 young passengers in the vehicle, he saw no furtive or suspicious movements, and he had no information that the youths were being kidnapped, detained, or molested in any manner. In fact, the only reason given by Winfrey for stopping appellant was that appellant was driving a vehicle along the streets of Modesto at 1:15 in the morning with 2 young passengers, and that he did not look old enough to be their parent or guardian. That's all he had.
Yep, that's all he had, which is clearly not enough to pull someone over, and that's what this case is about. This is important, as Here's the Deal will somehow turn this into not needing a driver's license.
Because people are constantly saying that driving a car or transporting your personal property from A to B on the public highways is a privilege granted to you by the government, not an inalienable right given to you at birth by God or whoever, or it's just inherently in you. They're constantly calling it a privilege. Again, not according to the Supreme Court, not according to lower courts, not according to the Constitution, and for goodness sakes, not according to natural law.
The next sentence will highlight how he came to this conclusion. Remember, it's just one sentence in an entire case.
Nonetheless, the right, not the privilege of the citizen to drive on a public street with freedom from police interference unless he is engaged in suspicious conduct associated in some manner with criminality, is a fundamental constitutional right which must be protected by the courts. That's powerful.
Powerful or not, that was it. This one sentence somehow shows us that we don't need a driver's license. If you're confused, well, you're not the only one. Let's try to break this down, shall we? Yes, we have the right to drive on a public street with freedom from police interference. We also have the right to walk on a public street with freedom from police interference. We also have the right to ride on a bus on a public street with freedom from police interference. Do you see where I'm going with this? Unless there is criminal activity afoot or suspicion of criminal activity, we have the right to be left the hell alone. But if someone is driving on expired or fake plates, for example, the officer now has probable cause to initiate the traffic stop.
Consequently, while we do not censure Officer Winfrey or question his motives, the fact remains that he stopped appellant's vehicle solely because it was occupied by young people. That's all it was. Oh, it just looks suspicious to me. It was occupied by young people.
Yes, that's the whole premise of the case. It has nothing to do with your soft shittery. TM.
I mean, where do you literally have to pull something out of your ass to say, no, you need the government's permission to take your personal property upon the public highways. It's making it up.
I absolutely love this part because he just pulled that out of his ass because nothing in the case is backing up his claims.
Having decided that Officer Winfrey did not have probable cause to stop appellant's vehicle in the first place, in the first instance, it follows that the subsequent search was unlawful even though consented to by appellant, and that all evidence adduced therefrom was the product of an unlawful search, as our Supreme Court said in People versus Haven. There you go. Got the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. You got lower courts. You got the Supreme Court. You got universal law.
So that was literally his big finale and why he claims the Supreme Court ruled states cannot regulate motor vehicles. All because in this case, an unlawful stop and search took place. I think someone needs to jump to conclusions, Matt, for Christmas. But he's not done yet. This is where it really gets fun.
According to the Supreme Court, and if you want to know about the Supreme Court, here are a couple court rulings right here. I mean, the wording is amazing.
The wording, we will find out, is not only amazing, but non-existent.
And right here, Chicago Coach Company versus City of Chicago, and people can brush this under the rug if they want to, but this is a Supreme Court case. No state government entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, or waterways, transporting his vehicles and personal property for either recreation or business, but by being subject only to local regulation, i.e. safety, caution, traffic lights, speed limits, etc. Travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurances.
The last sentence sure looks like he hit the ball out of the park. But why is it in bold and a different font? Remember, he's claiming to be quoting directly from these cases. What I've done is downloaded these cases in a PDF to make it easy to search for key terms. Let's take a look at Chicago Coach Company versus City of Chicago from 1929 first. So let's try to find this last sentence in the case that he highlighted. We're going to take 3 key words from this sentence to see if it actually exists in this case text or not. Remember, it reads, travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurance. Let's go with the word licensing first. As you can see, the word licensing is nowhere to be found in this entire case. How about registration? So licensing and registration are unfortunately nowhere to be found, but surely insurance is, right? Because he's quoting directly from the case. Yikes, 3 strikes and we're out. But it's not only the highlighted sentence. The previous sentences in this paragraph don't exist either.
Travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurances. That's what the courts have ruled. That's not me. That's not me saying this.
Wrong. It's literally just you saying this because that sentence is nowhere to be found in the case. Let's take a look at one more example.
This right here in Wingfield versus Fielder, the court makes it clear that a license relates to qualifications to engage in profession, business, trade, or calling. Thus, when merely traveling, so they make a distinction here. Without compensation or profit, traveling without compensation or profit. You're just going from point A to point B, minding your own business. You're not working for somebody. You're not contracted for somebody. You're not doing this for profit. You're just taking your personal property, your car, from point A to point B. Merely traveling without compensation or profit outside of business, enterprise, or adventure with the corporate state. No license is required of the natural individual traveling for personal, business, pleasure, and transportation. Personal, business, pleasure, and transportation. That's Wingfield versus Fielder.
Let's do a quick search on 3 words that he emphasized when he was reading this paragraph from the case Wingfield versus Fielder. We're going to go with profession, traveling, and profit. Once more, we find ourselves unable to locate the entirety of this paragraph that he asserts supports his argument, despite its non-existence. I'm going to try one more word, however.
Stop! Stop! He's already dead!
Well, I didn't see that coming. In a surprising twist, it has been revealed that Wingfield versus Fielder asserts Fricn Media, Michigan Constitutional Crusader, and Here's the Deal as the true sheep, as they neglected to conduct thorough research. Instead, they simply followed the crowd and regurgitated information fed to them by others.
I'm going to go ahead and end this video because I don't want it to go too long, but I want to let you know that according to the Supreme Court, according to the lower courts, according to the Constitution, according to natural law, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not giving any kind of advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what the courts have said. There is no license requirement to drive on the public highways and byways according to the lower courts and the Supreme Courts.
Closing out, I couldn't come up with a better example of why I named my channel Dummy Kruger, which, for those unaware, is a play on the words referencing the Dunning-Kruger effect because it perfectly captures the phenomenon of overestimating one's competence. So let's do a quick recap. Here's the Deal stumbled upon a compilation of court cases hastily put together by a sovereign citizen. This individual went on to fabricate quotes, falsely attributing them to the actual court cases. Here's the Deal, now considering himself an expert in the field, eagerly embraced this misinformation and disseminated it to his 100,000 subscribers. Fricn Media and Michigan Constitutional Crusader, influenced by Here's the Deal's credibility, also shared this incorrect information with their respective thousands of subscribers. This sequence of events exemplifies the abundance of misinformation prevalent on the web today. But yeah, I'm the sheep. Well, bye.